I got a couple connectors. If you look behind me, we got a motor that we just installed in this car, and on the brand new wire harness, some of the connectors that went to certain sensors on that engine were too short on the brand new wire harness. Go figure that. So anyway, I have to lengthen them out. Now, the way that I do that is I solder the wires together, and that's what this is about today, is how to solder wires properly. There's one connector, which is, this is our crank sensor connector. This is our crank sensor, and that has to be extended approximately 18 inches. I don't understand how the fuck they fucked that up, but they did. They fucked it up from the factory when we bought the $1,000 fucking wire harness. And of course, my friend Pete has to fix their fucking problem.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
This little lesson here is about how to solder wires, automotive wires together. A lot of times what I'll do is, usually when I'm wiring a car up, I use a butt connector just like that, okay? And I butt connect all the wires. Now there's a certain way that you need to learn how to use butt connectors to make them work properly, where the wires will not separate and the butt connector actually works. Believe it or not, wiring your car with butt connectors is just as good as soldering them. Don't let anybody tell you different. If they do, they are anal fucking assholes, and they got their head up their fucking ass and don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Because 99.9% all cars that I wire up are with this right fucking here. Never had a fucking comeback of saying, I got a wire shorting out, my ignition switch isn't working, blah, 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 blah. Usually the customer comes back and says, I don't know what you did, my friend Pete. My battery doesn't die out anymore. It doesn't drain its power when it's parked. Everything works perfect. The headlights are brighter, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So butt connectors are good if you know how to use them right and you use the right tools, okay? Using the right tools, just like you see right here, all right? This is what we're using today, the right tool. This is a good soldering iron, very high performance and very hot, all right? You don't want to touch that, is the key to doing the job right. So what I got right here is a fitting that came on our wire harness. Now, once again, this is the crank sensor fitting, and it's too short to go down under the engine and then plug up under the crank pulley. So what I've done here is I went ahead and stripped the wires. Now I want you to pay attention. I've stripped the wires approximately 1/2 inch. All right, that's about a 1/2 inch strip. And then what I did is I had shrink tube. Now what shrink tube is once I solder my wires together, I'll slide the shrink tube over that, heat it up, and that will protect these wires from touching anything. And if you look right here, you can go out and purchase a shrink tube kit. Okay, these work from heat. When you heat these up, they shrink. So you want to have a heating mechanism such as this. This is a throwaway lighter. It costs about $1.93 with taxes over at your local grocery store. So keep one of these in stock. And I'm showing you how to do this the easy, simple way. You can go out and buy these high-tech, fancy fucking tools and these blowtorch fucking soldering irons that, you know, take little CO2 cartridges and shit, but we're doing this shit at home, okay? We're not at the big boy's shop. We're not fucking getting charged $135 fucking an hour. We're not fucking getting raped. We're not getting stuck in the fucking ass with the big pole outside. We're doing this at home, and we're doing it right, and we're using the proper tools. Do you see what I'm saying? So using this is all you need, and then we'll get to this in a minute. But what I want to do is I want to explain shrink tube. Shrink tube comes in all size and shapes and colors, okay? And when you buy a kit like this, all right, that has different sizes from little to, let's get this out, big, all right, they might come like this right here where they're multicolored. Now, I just happened to pick this up several years ago at an estate sale for 25 cents. It's been sitting around and I've never really had to use it except when I work on my guitars. When I rewire my guitars, I use a lot of shrink tube. It's very important. But yeah, so having a little bit of this around is the best thing that you'll ever have when you're soldering and rewiring or wiring new stuff up like we're doing today. As we look at this fitting right here, you can see that I'm using the proper size shrink tube, so when I solder my wires together, this is going to be able to slide over it, and then I'll heat those up, and then they will shrink to what we need. I was telling you that I cut my wires approximately a half an inch. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to twist it. All right, and what that's going to do, that's going to keep your wires from fraying apart and accidentally touching each other or not getting the whole wire soldered up. And then when you solder your wires, you want to try to find some wire that is equivalent to the gauge that you're using. And if you look back here, you can see this is our old wire harness off the engine that came out of the original car. The engine came out of, so I always keep that until I'm done with it due to situations like this. Now, as far as color coding the wire properly, that's really not necessary as long as you color code them from this color to that color back to the red. Do you see what I'm saying? So it really doesn't matter what color the wire is as long as you keep all the wires in sequence and you know what the fuck you're doing. That's real important. So we have a red wire right there, and the closest one that I can find that was solid is this pink wire. I'm going to take my wire strippers. I'm going to strip it approximately a half an inch, okay? Then I'm going to go ahead and twist that wire just like I did on my fitting. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to come over here just like this. We're going to get all these wires out of the way, and I'm going to put those wires together just like this. I'm going to start in the middle, all right? Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm starting in the middle, and then I am going to twist that around that way, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to twist it this way. Now what that's going to do, all right, it's going to give us a nice even Steven situation where the wires aren't sticking out or where there's no sharp jagged edges, okay, and we'll be able to take our shrink tube, slide it over like that, heat it up, and then it'll be done. Okay, before we solder any wires, I want to go over the tools that we're going to use. Now this soldering iron here is an electric soldering iron, okay? It's a plug-in soldering iron, and it's a very high quality soldering iron. What brand is this soldering iron? It really doesn't matter, but it's got a heat range knob right here, and when I use this soldering iron, I always use it on the highest heat range. This is a type of soldering iron that it stays on all the time. The kind that you see with when you pull the trigger, those electric ones, and then they got that little loop thing in them, those really don't work that good, okay? And you're really going to waste your time and money and effort when you're soldering wires such as this. These are replaceable tips on these. These are ceramic tips that get very, very hot, all right? This is the type of soldering iron that you want to use when you're wiring up and soldering automotive wires such as these. Now, the solder itself, that's a very important issue right there. You want to use solid silver solder, but you want to use it where it's got flux inside it, all right? You don't want to get the solid silver that does not have any flux, so make sure you get some flux core silver solder. It's very important to use that. This is the only wire that's going to hold them wires together and not fall apart. It's silver solder with flux core in it. Make sure that you buy this brand, very expensive stuff. This roll right here costs $24, okay? But it'll last me forever. Very important. We're now ready to go ahead and solder our wire. As you can see, I went ahead and wrapped it just like I showed you. I put the two wires together just like this, and then I wrapped them like that to keep a nice straight line instead of pulling them out and then twisting them and then folding it over, which we don't want to do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our solder. This is the flux solder, silver solder with flux in it. We're going to take our 500 watt, that's right, this is a 50 watt, I'm sorry, this is a 50 watt soldering iron. We're going to take our 50 watt soldering iron, we're going to touch the wire just with the tip, okay? We're going to keep it on there just for a minute, and this will heat up very quickly. We're going to put the solder on the tip of our soldering iron, okay? And that will eventually get hot and wrap around our wire where we want it to go. As you can see, I'm holding it underneath and I'm touching the soldering iron, and that's it right there. Once our solder is cooled down, what I'll do is I'll take my shrink tube and I will go ahead, slide it over the soldered area. I'll take my lighter just like this, heat it up, and then put the shrink tube right where it's going to be. And then, as you can see, our wire is now soldered up. It's protected from any elements or anything touching anything else, and it will stay together forever. So the next thing I'll do, I'll go ahead and repeat my process on every single wire. Once I get all the wires connected, I'll take my shrink tube, possibly this one right here, and I'll go ahead and stack them on top of each other just like this to however the length is. All right, you see what I'm saying? And then I'll go ahead and connect my wires to the wire harness, repeating my process again, soldering each individual wire. Once I've done that, then I can go ahead and take my shrink tube, shrink it all down. These wires will be covered. It'll all be protected. It'll look like factory original. We'll go ahead and plug it in and be done with this project. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, showing you how to solder wires and do it right. Always remember, wrap the wires this way, not this way, and always use your shrink tube to protect your wires after you've done your soldering. We'll see you later. Good luck, and hopefully you won't get any electrical shorts. If you remember correctly, we went ahead and connected our wires right here. Let me go ahead and pull that back and I'm going to show you. You can see them right there. So I'm taking my oversized shrink tube and I am covering my wires just like so. Okay? And then I have another piece of shrink tube that I'm going to fold that over. Did you see how I did that? I folded that over and then I will overlap that. And then I'll take this shrink tube, and here's a good look at what your wires should look like after you solder them and then put your shrink tube on them. So I'll go ahead and put my shrink tube over these ones, fitting them in there nice and securely. I'm going to pinch this one together just like that. I'll overlap that just like that. Ah, you fucker. It's a fucking hair too short. like that. And then once that's done, we'll go ahead and take our lighter and start shrinking our tube down onto the wires. Now you can also use a high heat heat gun to do this with, but this will work just fine. Okay, a heat gun will probably give it more of a uniform look, but if you're into perfection, you might want to use the heat gun. I'm actually doing this for protection, and you will never see this wire once it is installed in the car, and it will look fine. And the lighter that I'm using is a low heat lighter. This is basically used to light barbecue pits with, so nothing fancy, just a good old lighter to heat up our shrink tube and not melt our wires inside and do the job that we need it to do. Hopefully. Looks like our lighter's almost out of fluid. Shouldn't be. And then what I like to do to finish the job out is I like to go ahead and take my electrical tape and very tightly and securely tape the ends of the shrink tube where I added it. We're going to go ahead and put one right here where this joins together, and then this one here as well. And then of course over here on the end where it joins together with the plug itself. And that, my friend, is the way that you properly use a soldering iron and solder your wires together. Shrink tube is a big fucking deal going on over here, and using the right tools to do the right job is the way to go. So I will go ahead and run my wire just like this. We'll bring it down here just like that. We'll bring it right up here. We'll plug it in, and bam, everything looks clean, it's all in order, and everything's going to work perfect. So the next time you need to solder your wires, always remember you need to get the flux core wire, solder wire, which is silver. Silver's the best, very expensive but well worth it. And you have to have a good soldering iron just like the one I got. That's a 50-watt soldering iron. I really don't know high-tech, low-tech shit. I just know that this one's a good one, and it works very, very quickly and fast. And then you want to twist your wires like that, not like that. Okay, remember that. Twist them together like this so they're in a nice line, not like this where you have to bend them over the wire and then they're all fucked up and it's a big bundle worth of shit. Always remember to add your shrink tube to your wire, okay, before you put it together. I've done that before. I've had to cut them off. I forget about it. It's very important to make sure you put shrink tube on those wires. That's what's going to protect them from not shorting out and causing fucking problems down the line. So this is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, showing you and telling you how to do it right, do it right, do it right, because if you ain't doing it right, you definitely aren't fucking doing it at all. And over here at SWRC, we try to do it right all the time, but we make mistakes, and mistakes are going to be made. And if you make a mistake, start over, do it again. It really doesn't fucking matter, because it's just a thing that says we will find the solutions to the situations to get her done right.
Classes don't stop till you know everything.